It's time for some accountability. And what better place to start than with our most watched video to date? In this video, we're checking back in with the books from the Copper Age comics to invest in before it's too late top 10 comics list from all the way back in February 2021. Let's go. From time to time, I think it's important to reflect back on the content and see how we did with some of our comic book suggestions. Have the picks held their value? Have they gained value? Or did we miss the mark and they've lost value over the last 15 months? I think this kind of transparency is important, as it's a great way to reiterate that none of us can perfectly predict what the market will do. It's time to see how we did. Let's get into the list. Starting off where we did last time around, we have The Crow #1 in the number 10 spot. James O'Barr's tragic tale was seeing strong gains in value last spring. At the time of recording the original video, a raw high-grade copy of The Crow #1 would have set you back upwards of $750, just a bit more than pocket change for the most of us. However, despite the boom and correction of 2021, The Crow #1 has continued to show strong increases in value. As of right now, that same raw high-grade copy that would have cost you $750 last spring is going for a hefty $1,200, an increase of 60% in just over a year. In one of those weird market anomalies, The Crow's first appearance in Caliber Presents #1 is still lagging far behind the character's second appearance in The Crow #1. There's no doubt that the market favors this first cover and second appearance issue. Next up is a book that the market loves to hate, X Factor #6, the first appearance of Apocalypse. If you've been with the channel for long, you know this is a book that I love to bring up from time to time, because on paper, the low price this book brings just does not make sense. Back in February 2021, X Factor 6 was averaging just $40 for raw high-grade copies. The X-Men fever that swept over the market in 2021 even managed to breathe a little extra life into this book, as it's currently selling for an average of $65 for raw high-grade copies. One of the best examples we have of the damage a bad movie can do to a book. There are droves of 90s kids that grew up believing that Apocalypse is one bad dude, which is why I keep a very close eye on this issue. If we get a hint that Apocalypse will be coming to the MCU, then the 62.5% increase X Factor 6 has seen in the last 15 months will seem like small potatoes compared to where this one could wind up in pretty short order. The number 8 book on our top 10 Copper Age list is a Todd McFarlane classic, Incredible Hulk #340. This issue also had a good year in 2021 and weathered the correction rather well to boot. When the top 10 list was released last February, Incredible Hulk 340 was selling for right around $150 for high-grade raw copies. Flash forward to today, and it's going to take a bit more than that $150 if you want to bring one of these home. Up an impressive 66.6%, Hulk 340 now sits at an average price of $250 for raw high-grade copies. One of McFarlane's most iconic covers, I wouldn't be surprised to see this book continue to steadily rise in value year over year. Classic covers have always been a significant force within the market, but with the continued growth and interest for graded comics, a strong cover is more important than ever. The second of a surprising number of 4 independent books that were included on the original list is in the number 7 spot, and that is Evil Ernie #1. Featuring the first appearances of Evil Ernie and Lady Death, this book has a lot of potential in my opinion, but also faces a pretty unique headwind, as the creator, Brian Pulido, only possesses the rights to one of his 2 featured characters. Pulido continues to publish Lady Death comics today through his Kickstarter-fueled projects for his current imprint, Coffin Comics. Evil Ernie #1 checked in at $500 for a nice, raw, high-grade copy when we originally included it in the top 10 Copper Age comics list. Today, it's up 10% in value from the original video, as that same high-grade raw copy will cost you on average $550. Our number 6 book in February 2021, as it is today, is Tales of the Teen Titans #44, the first appearance of Dick Grayson's other alter ego, Nightwing. Sadly, just about a week ago, we lost New Teen Titans series artist and co-creator of Nightwing, George Perez, after a long battle with health issues. Back at the time of the original list, Tales of the Teen Titans 44 was averaging sales of $80 for raw high-grade copies. This is a book that is quick to come up in conversation anytime someone asks about DC books they should look to add to their collection. They're readily available and quite affordable on top of that. However, due to the frequency with which this book is mentioned, I'm willing to wager that you've probably heard every comic book YouTuber you're subscribed to mention it at some point in the last 12 months. You can no longer pick up a copy of Tales of the Teen Titans 44 for $80. In fact, the value of this issue has jumped an impressive 50% for raw high-grade copies, as sales are currently averaging $120 in the market. Knowing is half the battle when it comes to defeating Cobra, collecting comics, or just in life in general. So let's check in with our number 5 book, G.I. Joe number 1. Packed full of first appearances, G.I. Joe number 1 was one of the first 80s nostalgia books to really take off in recent years. Along with Transformers number 1 and DC Comics Presents number 47, which is the first comic book appearance of He-Man and Skeletor. Despite the poor performance of the recent Snake Eyes movie, interest in the G.I. Joe title remains high, as it's an intellectual property that fuels a high amount of nostalgia and is still an affordable run for collectors to work on in today's elevated price market. G.I. Joe number 1's average sales price was $200 when the list was released. In the current market, it's going to cost you a bit more than that to pick up a comparable high-grade raw copy. Prices are currently averaging $280, and demand remains strong for this title as a whole. A 40% increase over the last 15 months, and withstanding the correction of the fall of 2021, that makes me think that we're going to be saying Yo Joe well into the future. Spoon! The Tick is back in the spotlight as we're turning our attention back to the Tick number 1 special edition. Ben Edlund's quirky, blood-sucking arachnid-inspired superhero made his debut in the limited edition Tick number 1 special edition, which is our number 4 book. With a print run of only 5,000 copies, this book is a bit tougher to locate than one of the 9 printings the standard edition of Tick number 1 would receive. Indie book number 3 on our list, the Tick is a character that resonates with 90s kids like me. Another classic from the Fox Kids days, few superhero cartoons were as lighthearted and fun as the Tick. In today's market, a copy of the Tick number 1 special edition is going to run you around $510. If you're wondering how that compares to where this issue was back in February of 2021, hold on to your hat, as this issue is up an impressive 70%, having average sales in the neighborhood of just $300 when the top 10 list was originally released. Todd McFarlane comes roaring back and occupies not just the number 3 spot, but the number 2 spot as well. But first up, in the number 3 slot is Amazing Spider-Man number 316. This book has been on a bit of a roller coaster ride over the last several years, and the time between when this list first dropped and now is no exception. The main thing that this issue has going for it is that spectacular McFarlane Venom cover, which is the character's first full cover appearance. ASM 316 was helped along at the time, value-wise, by the upcoming Venom Let There Be Carnage movie. Flash forward to now, and we know that the Venom sequel left something to be desired, and along with the natural tendency for books to cool off on the backside of a theatrical release, this issue, along with other Venom keys, have started to soften a little bit. Despite all of that, you'd still be in good shape if you hurried out and picked one of these up last February at the $200 average sales price. 15 months later, this book is bringing $215 on average for high-grade raw copies. The good news is, I think this book has fantastic long-term potential. It's the Venom cover of choice for fans of the character, and the McFarlane art lends another layer of desirability for the book. It may be a bumpy road with plenty of ups and downs, but my money is on this book inching higher and higher over the long term. Our runner-up and the final Todd McFarlane book on the list jumps over from Marvel to DC. Coming in at number 2, once again, is Batman number 423. Rocking this awesome McFarlane cover, You cannot look at the cape work that Todd Father worked out for this Batman cover and not instantly think of Spawn. This book used to hide out in discount bins all across the place, and I love to liberate those into my inventory, but sadly, those days have passed, as FMV on a copy of this issue's first printing now will run an average of $150, just as it did back in February of 2021. So Batman 423 is the first issue on our list to leave us flat on our investment. Long story short on this book, it looks great in a slab and is a fantastic display piece. However, the fact that the second and third printings have the exact same cover for a much more appealing price may hold the value of the first printings down ever so slightly, but this checks enough boxes. You've got a big time artist, classic Batman cover, and the whole Spawn prototype styling that I suspect demand will keep up with the supply for quite some time. Wrapping up this update is our number one book from back in February 2021, Bone number 1. Unfortunately, there was recently some bad news for Bone, as Netflix canceled the animated Bone project they were developing. Not just that, as I understand it, the entire animation wing of Netflix has ceased to exist. So while that may take some wind out of the sails for the title as a whole, I don't imagine Bone number 1's first printing is going to be too heavily impacted. It is and always has been a very hard to come by 90s indie book. The good news is, like the preceding book on the countdown, we haven't lost any ground. Raw, high-grade copies are holding tight at $6,000, and graded issues are generally doing the same, with some grades actually seeing price increases. The simple truth is there just aren't that many copies of this book floating around out there, and if it were me, I'd be a buyer on this book whenever I had the opportunity. The economic uncertainty facing the US and the world right now has a lot of people nervous in a variety of markets. Crypto's taken a beating, the stock market is on a long losing streak, and the buying power of the dollar is weakening. All of this is driving people to find a safe haven for their money. I can't tell you if comics is that safe harbor or not, but I can and will encourage you to have your guard up in these uncertain times. You hear me say collect responsibly at the end of every video. It's on my Como shirts, it's scribed on all of my convention signage. Today though, I want to offer a new take on collect responsibly for you. In times such as these, collecting responsibly has to entail making responsible decisions financially. I have to assume if you're here watching me or Swagglehauss or Bry or Reggie or Gary, Newbie, Automatic, whoever, that you love comics. We all love comics, and as cliched as it may be, sometimes if you love something, you've got to let it go. I hope that it doesn't come to this for any of you, but comics are expendable. Unless you're in the business, they don't put food on your table, they don't keep a roof over your head, or keep your lights on. Make sure that real life comes first, and don't worry about it if you need to take a break from buying comics for a bit. A break can actually be a really positive thing for a collector. It can allow you the opportunity to reflect and reevaluate how you approach the hobby, and temporarily stepping away might just give you the resources you need to make it through a tough time. And don't worry, the hobby, the community, and the books will all be here for you when you're able to pick it back up. Be careful out there, everybody. Collect responsibly. I'll see you in the next video.